I was 14, and I am obsessed with finding out what's normal in life. So I would consider myself a pretty normal 14-year-old. I was in the midst of navigating the social constructs of my junior high through my friends and my peers, figuring out where I fit. You know, was I a jock? Was I a freak? Was I a prep? It turned out years later, I just found out I was white and angry. And so social media was a big part of my life back then. That does not mean the internet or the gram. That meant my sister's record collection. For all you people over 35, you probably can, yes, identify with that. My sister had a record collection in the living room, and they consisted of some wonderful albums like the Eagles, the Beatles, Elton John, Heart. Yes, my sister loved Heart. And I was trying to figure out how life worked through music, and I was pretty sure that this guy, Elton John, wasn't doing a lot of fighting on Saturday night with a belly full of beer, and I don't know why you would go to a hotel in California where you couldn't leave. And then I found the back of the record collection, which had George Carlin, and I wound up finding this green album that was labeled $1 Million Babies by Alice Cooper. And I took a rest from the record collection for a while, but TV was a big influence. So it was records and TV. And I had a small TV in my room, and I was watching shows and figuring out how life worked through TV. And so I was interested in high school, so I would watch Welcome Back, Kotter and figure out how that worked. And I was interested in dating, and so Happy Days, right, was on. Fonzie would snap those fingers, and there would be two ladies that would come on there, and then there was Three's Company, but we'll skip that. And movies, so if you're local, you might remember Channel 20 here, and I would have that little TV in my room, and there would be Saturday nights, they would play the scary movies, right? So I was watching Dawn of the Dead, trying to figure that out, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and then one day, A Clockwork Orange came on, and then I think I paid for my therapist's sports car later in life, but I was trying to figure it out. And I was starting to make my own decisions in life. I was 14, and I was coming up to a very important part of my life, a rite of passage. I was going to have my first summer job at 14, and that was a big deal. That was real money, a real responsibility. Some of you might remember your first summer job, the real one. Some of you might not remember, but this summer job to me left a lasting memory and really an impression on my life that would come back and help my future self in a way that was very important. So my best friend during that time, his father was in charge of the maintenance of our apartment complex, a very large apartment complex not too far from here in Alexandria, Virginia. We won't name that apartment complex since I was 14 and definitely unqualified to work there. And one of my jobs in that position was to go and be an apartment inspector. It wasn't that difficult, just wait. So basically, I would go into the apartment and figure out that the hot and cold water would work, that the lights would come on, that the actual appliances were still left in the apartment, and windows would open, shades would close, all that kind of stuff. And it just wasn't that hard, right? One of the things they told me specifically to watch out for was to make sure that the outlets were not painted over, right? Paint crew was part NASCAR crew, so they would come through and paint everything white. Bathrooms and kitchens had semi-gloss paint, so that was the most difficult area. And at 14, I had decided that the most efficient tool to use for this job to make sure that the outlets were clear and that you could see the slots was a screwdriver. Yes, I know. I was there. I was 14 and unqualified, but I had started making my own decisions. And this went fine for a while. Yes. And I remember the day, it was the kitchen. It was an outlet above the countertop, so I could kind of look at it, and it was just painted white. And I pulled out my screwdriver and decided that this is what I do, and was slowly clearing out the outlet. And yes, I got bit Screwdriver went in, and all of a sudden I was just caught. And I was shaking like this, and I was going, not good. And really, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, other than I was now connected to the wall. And there's things coursing through my body, and I couldn't let go. I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't do anything. And I was sitting there and just starting to do this. And it felt like minutes. And that inside of me, I started to panic. I never experienced panic before. And if you've never experienced panic, I would describe it as this. I had two thoughts in my mind. I'm in trouble, and I'm going to die. And they were flashing like this, faster and faster, while my breath was going away. So I'm shaking, and I'm going to die, I'm in trouble, I'm going to die, I'm in trouble, I'm doing. And a small voice inside my head said, calm down and do something. Calm down and do something. And I'm shaking, and I can't move my arm, and I get the thought, lean back. And as I'm shaking, I just lean back, and I pull the screwdriver out of the outlet. And at 14, I made an executive decision that I would not use the screwdriver anymore to clear the outlets. And that was the last time that happened. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm heading to the beach, to the Outer Banks. I have my small family, my brother and sisters, we're all together, and we're on a family beach vacation. And if you've ever been on a family beach vacation or any kind of thing that's happening at the beach, you watch the weather. Because you know there's a good percentage that you're going to get some rainy days. So we show up and it's rainy and there's a storm. It's first day, we head off to the beach. We crest that little hill before you see the ocean. And as we get to see the water, we see a red flag on the beach, right? You guys know if there's a lifeguarded beach, red flags mean you're not allowed to be in the water. It's unsafe. The lifeguards had determined that. It's the first day. It's a little rainy. You've kind of planned for a day of this. You're like, we'll go see a movie. We'll go out to eat. We'll play games in the house. We'll all go to bed early, and then we'll get up the next day and do it again. Day 2, we crest that little hill, look at the ocean, and there are the red flags again. It's a little more sunny this day. And so we've determined, let's just plop everything down. We'll wait for the lifeguards to change their mind and open up the ocean to us. And I'm sitting there, and there's two things that are happening. One, I'm getting tired of getting buried in the sand by children. And I'm watching the lifeguards go up and down the beach about every 45 minutes, not taking away the red flag. But I've noticed that there's a pattern. That the lifeguards go up on their little ATV, they don't pull the flag, they just keep going, and they come back in about 45 minutes. So I'm sitting there with my brother, and I'm like, hey, do you know that the lifeguards go by and they don't come back for 45 minutes? And he's like, yeah. I was like, if they don't pull up the flag the next time, do you want to go swimming? He was like, yeah. So we watch the lifeguard go by, they don't stop, and we decide that it's time to go into the water, to go swimming. So we get up, we go in, and everyone's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? The beach is filled with people because it's actually kind of sunny, and everybody's waiting for the ocean to be open to us, and I'm like, I'm paying for this trip, and I'm tired of cat pee in the sand, and so let's go swimming. So we go into the ocean. And it takes about 30 seconds to get past the breaks, you know, where the water's real rough right there, and we're about a little past waist deep. And I realized that the ocean is angry, and that maybe this was not a good idea. But I'm also a guy, and I'm like, hey, I've got this. And about 30 seconds later, I'm up to my neck, and the water is rough. And the waves are not only coming at you, they're coming beside you, and every once in a while behind you. And there's this undertow that just keeps pulling us out. And I'm about 8 feet in front of my brother, and I'm realizing that I'm in trouble, that this is now a very serious situation. And I turn to my brother, and I say, Tim, I think I'm in trouble. He looks at me, he's just staring right at me. eyes wide open, and he just turns and leaves. I'm now on to plan B, which does not include my brother helping, and I started to panic again. I started to get that feeling of, I'm in trouble, I'm going to die. Faster and faster, I turned back from my brother, and I got hit by a wave, and I choked on a whole bunch of salt water, and I really thought might be the end, and the panic is setting in, and I can't breathe. And that small voice comes back in my head that says, calm down and do something. Calm down and do something. And I decide to kind of bob and weave in the water, swim a little, and head at an angle back to the beach to get out of the undertow. And I make it back 200 yards down the beach. And I get to do that walk of shame in front of everybody else on the beach. Kind of like, it was not that bad, but don't go out there. I'm walking past all the dads. And I get back to our little area, and everyone's like, what are you doing, Dad? You're almost done. I was like, it was okay. I was fine. And I never talked to my brother about it. Never kind of went, what happened? Until years later, we were out with friends having a few beers, and I was like, you remember that time we went to the beach and I asked you for help? I said, I'm in trouble, and you just looked at me and left. And he said, yeah, I remember that. Because I thought I was going to die, and that I didn't think that I could save you, so I decided that I would save myself. I said, okay, you're younger, so that's okay. But if it wasn't for that 14-year-old boy who had that summer job, who was in over his head, who was trying to figure out life, who had decided that he can start making some decisions on his own, which included a metal screwdriver and outlets, that he experienced panic for the first time. And only the second time in his life did he experience panic in the ocean that day. If I wouldn't have had that minuscule, small blip of a summer job, I might not be here today. My point of the story, don't be a dumbass.